Project is going to be a counter application. So for us to have a beautiful application, I just open up my Adobe XD to create something cool. Now the counter is just a very simple display, and just to make things very easy, I have actually just broke it down the number of containers that we're going to have. As you can see, we're going to have just one H tag, then have our main container, which is going to be like the wrapper. Then we have our container div that will wrap the timer. We're also going to have a button div that is going to wrap all the buttons. So looking at it again, we're going to have 3 buttons, then the counter. All right, so let's dive into it. So to create our project folder, I normally save my projects in one of the folder in my desktop, and the folder's name is called my project. So I'm just going to open a new folder and just title it counter. Now once we have it, I need to open it with our VS Code. I'm just going to drag it to the VS Code. Now that we have our project folder being opened with VS Code, the next thing we want to do is to create our first file. So on our first file is going to be index.html. Now that we have the index.html, we need to declare our project mockup. We need to declare all the basic HTML tags that will make our project works. So VS Code provides us with a boilerplate, which we're going to load. So the boilerplate, let's just change this to counter, which is our app title. So the next thing is we need to declare all those containers that we saw in the design. So starting with, let's just declare our main container, which is going to wrap the entire project. So we're just going to say main. Then the next thing is we need our h1. Then we can just put in counter, following by another div, the div that is going to contain the counter. So we can basically just put the number or the 0 as the default. The next is another div that is going to house the buttons. So we can just have list of buttons. So we're just going to say buttons. So we can duplicate them. Just have 3 of them. Then the first one is going to be decrease. The next one is going to be reset. Then followed by increase. If we save it, so I like to run my program with the live server. So I'm just going to right click and open with live server. Yeah, so you can see that we have our basic file structure. We have decrease, we have the reset, we have the increase, but nothing is happening right yet and is not well formatted. So now that we know that we have our basic HTML file structure, it is time for us to move into the styling. Project, we need to declare some classes on our tags. Then we need to create the CSS file. Let's start with the class. So let's just style this div as the button. Then I think we can style this one too as counter. Right, so we know that we can target the div for our button and the div for the counter. Now let's create the file for the style. So it's just going to be style.css. Then we need to link our style in the HTML. So we're just going to say link then style.css. All right. So first is, let us declare our global selector, which is going to be star. Now let's use box sizing to border box. Okay. If we load our style, nothing should change yet. I think let's just split our screen so that we can see the two things working together. Yeah. So if we proceed and start styling, let's target our main. To target the main, we can just say max width. We want the max width to be like 600 pixel. Then we want the width, we want the margin to be, let's say, 20 viewports. Also, we want to do auto left and right. So basically what we are doing here, we're just saying we want margin at the top, margin at the bottom, then we want the same margin auto left and right. So even when we increase, you see that we have this clean centralized content. The next is, let us look at what our master design look like. Okay, so we have the H1, then this very container. We're going to style the header, we're going to style this div, then we're going to style all the buttons. So let's just quickly style the H1. So in fact, let's just set the font family to, let's use Roboto. No, we want to use Roboto. You can see that the font had changed. Then we need to target the H1. So one thing is, when you're designing like this, you can follow the specification. Now we can check the font size here, which is 50. Then when we check the font size, we can check the font color as well, which is 70, 70, 70. So let's say font size equals to 50 pixel. Then we can say the color is going to be pound 70, 70, 70. Right? That's more like a dark gray. The next thing we want to do is to have the margin. So it's going to be centralized. Let's just have the text aligned first before the margin. Let's say center. Then we want to have the margin. Margin is, let's say, 20 pixel. So there's going to be margin at the top and margin at the bottom. If it's not enough, we check it later. The next is, we need to style our counter. So remember, the class to style the counter is just counter. Then we can say we want the background color to be pound 00848F. You can see that you have something similar to what you have. Then we want the text align as well to be center, so that the 0 can just fall between. Then we want padding. From padding top. Let's say we're just going to make it 50 pixel. Then padding bottom 50 pixel as well. 50 pixel. Then we want to change the color text to be like 20. Then we want to change the color of the text. So we're just going to say color, then make it white. We need to change the font size. Font size, we can check the font size here. The font size here is like 256 pixel. So let's be dynamic here. So we can just say 2M. Still small, so let's say 4. Still small, let's say 8M. Yeah, so then we need to reduce this padding to be like, let's even say 10 top, 10 bottom. Okay, let's try to increase this to like, yeah, so we can increase the margin as well, because we want margin bottom, margin top. So you can say margin top, let's just say it's gonna be 30 pixel. Then margin bottom, let's say it's gonna be 50 pixel. You can see that we immediately have margin in between. If you guess right, the next is to style our buttons. Now to style our button, remember we have the class button. Then we can also target all the button elements. Then what we want to do here is increase the padding. We can say the padding to be 15 pixel, then maybe like 10 pixel. So we're just saying the padding left, right. We're targeting the padding left, right, all the side. Then let's increase the font size. Font size should be like 1.2 M. Then we can target each of the buttons. So we can follow specification as well. We can just come and check what's the font size. Font size is 16. We can just even turn this to 16 pixel, just to make sure that we're following the specification. Then if we check the size of the buttons, it's 146 width and the height is 61. So we can just say width 146 pixel, then the height is just going to be 61 pixel. So it's, at this point, it's similar to what we have here. So we can remove the border. Border, it's equals to none. So you can see that the border is out of it. Then the next thing we want to do is to center this. So we need a way to kind of like center this. So let's try to say, if we say that margin, let's say margin right, auto, then margin left, auto. Then we can say so one way to do this, to correct this, since it's not responding, let's make it display. Here, let's turn them to block. Display block. The next thing we can do here is to say display flex in the container. Display flex. Let's try justify content. Then we have space around. Okay, justify content space around. You can see that we have the space around. Let's remove this auto. Since we don't need it anymore, everything still works perfectly. In fact, one way for us to really maintain this very close look, we can remove this justify content around. And okay, so let's try to add margin in between the buttons. So we can just say margin let's give it like 10 pixel. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I think, let's see the gap that we have here. I think 10 pixel is kind of like okay. Then we need to find a way to centralize the content. You can just come here and say margin 0, then auto. If nothing is working yet, we can say the width. Let's take 80%. 80%. You can see that everything is now looking more like it. So even when we increase and decrease, everything still looks pretty cool. The next in our agenda is for us to change each of these colors accordingly. So for us to do that, let's just target the buttons. So let's do the end child 1. So it means the first child of the button, the first child. So if you look at the first child and the third child, they have the same color. So let's just declare them together. So we can just say comma, then button again, end child, the third child. Then we are just going to say background color. Let's try to get the actual color that was used here. So it's going to be 30 for ED. Just going to paste it, as you can see. Then we have similar to what we have here. Next is we need to change the color to white. So we can just change our color to white. You can see that the fonts are supposed to be bold. So let's increase the font of all the button to font width. Font width is going to be like, let's say 500. I think we need to increase more, maybe like 600. You can see that is bolder. And let's just confirm that we are using the right gray color for the third child. So it's going to be DA. So for the fourth child, we can just copy this one and remove this color white, then change it to second child. Then we're just going to change it to DA. As you can see, perfect. So if you see the design given to us, one last thing that is missing, and it's going to be the outline of the entire main div or container. So let's just come to our main and just say border. Then we want to say 1 pixel. Then we want solid. Then we want the color to be, let's say RGBA. Then I want 0, 0, 0. Then we can say 0.2. I want something very light. As you can see, we need padding at the top and padding at the bottom just to maintain, just to have this kind of space and to also give it border radius. So let's check the border radius that was done here. This is 37. So let's declare a padding top. Padding top, let's give it 70 pixel. Then let's give our padding bottom also 70 pixel. 70 pixel. Okay, then it looks okay. Okay, so the next thing is let's check the border radius, which is going to be 37 pixel. As you can see, we have the border radius, which is 37 pixel. So if you look at our static design that was done with the Adobe XD, we've replicated the same thing in our design. So even when you reduce, it's responsive. Let's even check the screens. You can see how it looks on mobile. See how it looks, which is very, very cool. Now that we have everything set up, the next thing we can try to achieve is let's commit this project into a GitHub repository. To do that, let's just minimize this. Then, we are just going to go to our GitHub first. So I'm just going to say GitHub. So this is my GitHub account. I'm just going to save it in the Untitled Repo. Then we need to add a new one. So we can call it counter. It needs to tally with the name that was used. Counter app with JavaScript. We want to make it public so that everybody can see it. So we'll be adding the README file later, so we don't need to add it here. I'm just going to create. Yeah, so what we need to do right now is to initiate our GitHub repository. So you can see GitHub already give us that flexibility. So what we can do is we'll come to our project and come to initiate GitHub to a terminal. So I'm just going to say git init. So this is like initializing the GitHub. Then we need to say git add. So we want to add all the projects. Then we need to say git commit. Then we have the message. We can just say initial commit. Now we've added everything. The next thing is we need to push it to this repo. And for us to push it, we need to be able to link our project. To link our project, so let's just say, let's start from this point, git branch m main. So we are creating a branch for the GitHub page. So branch is created. Let's link. So this is what we actually link with the remote. I'm going to say link. So we've linked. Then the next is we need to push. If we say push, this should push the project to our repository. As we refresh, you can see that we have our project uploaded. So we can always come back to it and contribute it whenever we like. And that's how we wrap it up for this section. In the next section, we are going to be adding JavaScript functionality that will allow us to decrease, increase, and reset our number counter. When the number is -1, we're going to change the color of this banner to be red. That's going to be a very fun thing to work with. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.